Something strange is going on with Montreal as they get out to a 2-0 lead against the Ducks, but once again, the team has turned into seemingly the November Habs again. Patrick Laine getting benched in the third period. The team not coming together the way we've seen over the past while. Now in a 5-game losing streak, we have to dive into a couple of the factors that are turning this team into one of the more confusing teams in hockey. There's a lot to get into on that front, but we also have a Jake Evans trade update via Frank Saravalli as he links multiple more teams to the Habs center. We got to get into all that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And Jesse, I think we'll just start with Jake Evans. Now we will get to the game and some weird things happening with Montreal, but I want to start with Jake. This is via Instagram. Saw this on Instagram. Frank Saravalli, of course, the original source. The Capitals, we've talked about them a bit. Devils, talked about them a bit as well. Flames, Maple Leafs, and Blue Jackets may be interested in Jake Evans. Now, before we dive into, we picked a couple of these teams that I think make sense, Jesse, but look, I know pretty much every team in the league is going to be wanting Jake Evans. I know we talk about what we'd want to sign him for pretty much every video, but again, like as the interest keeps climbing, the bidding is going to be higher and higher and higher despite these trades that have already gone down. Teams looking for centers. Before we dive into the teams, like, I don't know, if you had to put a percentage on it, I think at this point, it's getting closer to 50-50 sign versus trade just because of the pure interest on him, but I am still firmly in the camp to re-sign him, especially with the cap. What about you?
If you can, yeah, absolutely, because he just fits the identity of this team. And I think that that's something so important to lock down for this young team going forward. If you have a player that really feels like they're a part of the team and they kind of really fit the vision of what we want to really build here, you're at a point in the rebuild where I think you really want to lock down and secure those type of players, knowing how beneficial that really is down the road. But that being said, they're going to have to come to some type of agreement here because there's going to be a lot of interest. There's a lot of teams interested. Everybody wants a piece of Jake Evans right now. I would say, obviously, we would need to trade more than Jake Evans. If we were looking to get somebody like a Rasmus Anderson, that's what interests me with the Flames, even though it's been said from Craig Conroy that he's kind of off the board. I would say, as a small tangent, that I would prefer a Rasmus Anderson type over a Noah Dobson stylistically as a fit for us as that first right pairing defenseman. Because of Laine Hudson, I think a little bit more of that defensive guy, shutdown guy a little bit would be ideal in that role. Seems like that's not quite what's going to happen with Calgary, but obviously Columbus has the runway to kind of make something happen. They're in the mix, so they might have a couple players from us that they're really interested in right now.
And Columbus is one of these teams I'm more interested in. I think Calgary, especially after recently pulling off that Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee trade, like they're probably still kicking tires because look, I mean, Jake Evans would be a perfect fourth line center and they could make it work with the money, especially since Evans is only making 1.7. That would make them a very formidable lineup. Actually, I like that's a scary lineup. You add Jake Evans to this as well, but not just because they have Pospisil. That's a different type of scary. But still, we're talking about Columbus. Now, this is a team I mentioned the other day, Jesse, when talking about Yoel Armia trade destinations, as I brought up this recent article from the Hockey News. But when it comes to Jake Evans, like, again, now their center depth looks worse than it actually is here. Double Belouz is not their normal third-line center because Sean Monahan is usually their first-line center playing between Voronkov and Marchenko. But to have Monahan, Fantilli, Sillinger, and Jake Evans going down the middle for a playoff push, this team is blowing expectations out of the water. Now, the question for them would be, like, what could they give Montreal of interest for Jake Evans? I think if Columbus is to give anything, it would have to be some kind of big draft capital. And I don't know that that's exactly what Montreal is looking for. For an Armia guy, I wouldn't mind it. For Jake Evans, I think I might be upset with that. Like that's kind of my sticking point now, Jesse. Like the actual packages that I think teams could offer for Evans is not really in line with what I would want for him, especially as Montreal's taken that next step. You know, like Montreal wants a player like Jake Evans. They don't want another pick that's gonna, maybe you can flip that pick like Kent Hughes always does, but I don't really want another pick that's not going to develop for another 5 years.
Because he's so valuable. We're going to get into the game in just a second here, but I mean, he makes a beautiful pass to Armia here to get our first goal of the game, you know, here tonight. So I think absolutely just phenomenal in terms of his effort, you know, that he really brings to this team. I think a lot of people kind of recognize as well. We're hearing rumors of a second potentially coming for Evans, kind of his return, as we kind of reported on even yesterday. Second and a third, second and a prospect, something kind of along these lines. But as the list of suitors kind of grows, you have to feel like Kent Hughes is still going to wait. Like how the team fares is really going to help determine this trade. But a lot of fans are hoping right now that we're able to kind of find a deal.
Yeah, but, you know, how the team fares definitely is something going on right now. And, well, look, they're not faring great. I mean, Just looking at this box score, I mean, we watched the game, and if you didn't watch the game, you didn't miss much. I mean, look, the shorthanded play was awesome. Like, the special teams in the first period was great, up to 2-0 start. Again, Yoel Armia with this great goal, again, off of a Jake Evans defensive play and a sick Jake Evans pass, both of them leading to this Armia goal. And even Christian Dvorak, the power play, too, that we have complained, well, I have complained so much about this season, gets going. Christian Dvorak, the birthday boy, scoring a goal. But Jesse, I just think something weird's going on. And look, I don't think we need to dive too much into the specifics here. I think Montreal just kind of fallen apart. But like, what are your thoughts on how a lot of players just seemingly have fallen off a cliff? Like Juraj Slafkovsky, he had a solid second half of the third after having a rough first two periods. A guy like Patrik Laine, Jesse, didn't touch the ice in the third after I think one shift. Like, he played the fewest minutes of any player on the Habs not named Michael Pezzetta. And he only played 4 minutes more than Pezzetta. There's more than a few things. What was your reaction to this game, other than the brutal blown lead to the loss? But it feels like there's more at play here.
Yeah, this is a really tough one. And 5 straight losses, again, this is really hurting because this one felt like it was right there. That great first period where we feel, but then we're seeing like a little bit of a trend right now where we're getting those leads, but then we're allowing those multiple goal leads as kind of a road right underneath our feet, and this game is starting great. We're getting a lead, and we're beating a team and having a lead against a team that we should, which is great, which is something we haven't seen all the time. But then that's counteracted by the fact we start getting to that habit of kind of giving it up. Again, we had like that shot advantage. We allow them to creep and kind of surpass us on those shot totals. And then we get the power play at some key times, and just for whatever reason, it's not clicking. And the power play has been such a big reason of our success. A big part of that, obviously, is like the zone entries. But it's just what makes this game so tough is that there was so many problems. Like, we were playing such a tight checking on top of the opposition, type of, first period in so many different ways. And now we've seen that we're just kind of allowing it to slip on top of. I feel like it's a young team where they're getting a little bit too confident with that 2-goal lead. It's a couple of times where like, okay, we're good. And they're thinking mentally they got it. And then so they end up missing out on a couple opportunities where it's like, having that killer instinct, I think it's so big for like when you really capitalize on those other chances, get it 3-0 because you're going to need every single goal really going forward in today's league.
Yeah, like you need every single goal. And, one guy that we thought was going to help us a lot more than others, you went into a lot of great things there, including the young team thing. But, I don't know, like this is still a learning year, but I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm panicking too much. I'm not panicked about this team. That's not the word I want to use. But like I'm starting to actually become a little concerned. And I'm not concerned long-term future because it's way too early for that. But there's certain things like this Laine stuff. Like, look, it took Kirby months to get back into game shape. And I think anyone really genuinely criticizing Laine, saying he shouldn't be playing, like, look, Marty did bench him in the third because he hasn't been playing well. And that's fine. But I think people get a little more worried with Laine because of the situation, because of his past, because he's what he said, about other things, mental health, stuff like that. I still just think he needs some time to get back into game shape because, like, again, even when you see guys miss training camp, remember when William Nylander missed part of training camp during those contract things? He had the worst season of his career because it took him like 3-4 months to get going. Like, Laine didn't only he got a bit of training camp, then missed a few months of the season. It takes guys time. But Jesse, I think it's just, I don't know. Laine, right now 5v5, I have not been impressed. But I think, I don't know. Let me get my thoughts clear. I think I'm just so overwhelmed with what I'm seeing on the ice right now. Would you say that you are genuinely concerned about Laine's play, or do you think you're genuinely concerned about the Habs' play as of late in this 5-game stretch? Because it feels like it went from a great team. I mean, Emil Heineman might play part of this role. Habs are now 4-5-1. This was before the game. 4-5-1 without Emil Heineman since December 17th. 9-2-1 with him. I think he does make a difference, but there are some worrying trends, I will say, with this team where, like, you start blowing leads as opposed to coming back like all of a sudden overnight. And I feel like that's just not something you see very often.
Especially Guhle, who helps, with so many different parts of the game, things that are very unsung. And then when he's not there, you kind of figure like, okay, what's kind of missing, right? It's so much like he kind of brings to the game.
Good point.
With Patrik Laine, I'm not super worried because I feel like it's definitely there. Like he's going to continue to be a great power play guy. But what he needs to do to unlock his game is just simplifying it. We see on the Devo goal, like it was kind of an easy setup. It wasn't too complicated. That's often what kind of works. Like we see this team is often like to get the puck in deep, which is great, like in getting in the forecheck. Obviously, Laine likes to control the puck. He doesn't like to dump it in too much. he likes to control it, bringing it in the blue line, which is great. But I think he's going to realize a little bit more of kind of when to get that puck in deep and just simplifying the game a little bit more. You can tell he's there. He's got the puck, but he's just kind of thinking too much. Use your shot when it's the right time. Otherwise, get in that, that puck in deep and use that body like he's shown that he can. Like, he can be a very effective forechecker. But I think sometimes it's great because he kind of complements this team. You don't want to be dumping it all the time. I love a skill guy where he kind of wants to handle it. But I think sometimes in the offensive zone where really is the question for him to step up 5v5, it's just, play it simplifying, getting that puck in deep, and good things are going to happen as a result of that.
Hope so. I mean, teams have been closing in on Montreal's biggest strengths recently. The power play has not been clicking at all over the past month. Again, teams focusing in on Laine. Same thing we saw them do with Caufield in the past. And Montreal will adjust past this, right? These guys are not all going to stay in bad cold stretches for a long time. But the one thing we need right now is that secondary scoring. We got a bit of it tonight and still managed to lose the game. Look, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say except for there's something weird's going on, and I just hope that Montreal can claw back into it. And hey, I still got faith, Jesse. That team that went on that crazy tear from December 17th to the end of January, that team's still there. Yeah, we're missing Cayden Guhle, which is a key piece. And, some guys are on cold spills, but that team didn't just disappear. What I think it is a thing to come in the future. You'll learn from these games. This is a learning year. Slafkovsky still has 60 points in his last 82 NHL games. I think it might be, maybe he's 59 now or after tonight, but still, some great stuff coming, not to mention Demidov and Xhekaj continuing to play great, but let us know your thoughts down below on the weirdness that is the Montreal Canadiens right now and what you think is causing it. We'd love to hear from you, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. 12 minutes in, we got daily videos. You guys know how it is, and if you enjoy these, just double check that you've hit the button, because I know a lot of you actually haven't yet. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.